money, and whatever you all decide that you want to allocate money, this is a time to start influencing, directing, encouraging staff and board members as well to consider some of your innovative ideas. So I wanted that to kind of be the preamble to the meeting today, and encourage heated debate, extensive dialogue, and participation from everyone, board member or not. If we get into a couple of heated discussions, I would consider this meeting to be a great success. With that said, let's start kind of with the reason why we have these meetings and the budget objectives. So part of our responsibility is to provide transparency and public awareness, and to ensure that we do everything in the sunshine. It is part of our reporting and accountability that, again, as a public agency, that we are not only obligated but should be doing to ensure that the public and everyone, all interested parties, including our bondholders, are fully aware and have access to all the information that we have available to us and provide to them. The budget and the purpose of the budget is to provide specific services, is to identify the dollars that are going to provide these services and needs that these agencies does on a day-to-day to operate. It further ensures compliance, that we have money allocated, and that we're consistent with state statutes and compliant with state statutes and all our contractual obligations as per, again, our bondholder, our financing requirements, the state laws, the county laws, and everybody else's laws. Additionally, what this budget does, again, it establishes the parameters, and it establishes, how we're going to spend the money, and then it gets the ultimate approval from the board to authorize us spending, and that's, again, part of the public process that we need to have in a public setting. And lastly, it establishes benchmarks. Again, a budget is a budget. It's a projection of what we think it's going to be, given a lot of unknowns, given the fact that we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future, but it's our best guess estimate. So that's kind of the purpose of this workshop today, is to establish some of these parameters, understandings, and part of our public requirements. So let's talk a little bit about what happened in 2016. I get choked up talking about 2016. So we had some good things happen in 2016. I think starting with the S&P's credit rating was upgraded. So I think that's a reflection of our professional staff, our commitment to our strict policies and adherence to those policies. I think the fact that we're a small, nimble, and efficient and proficient organization, and we've been consistent with these procedures, and I think that's what bondholders and agencies, rating agencies, want to hear, that we're not fluctuating, we're not affected by the politics of the day, and it doesn't affect our bond requirement and then the risk to our bondholders, because that's what they ultimately want to know, that you're stable and you're not crazy spending and doing crazy stuff. So because of that, I think people like Moody and S&Ps have been able to, last year, or this year really, 2016, have increased our bond rating. And I think that's a reflection, again, of our policies, our adherence to those policies, and then our professional staff in conjunction with this volunteer board that provides guidance from a policy perspective. We got recognized a Certificate of Achievement. This is GFOA, and I'm sure that this is a financial institution that it does recognize, for our bondholders. It does show that we are financially stable and that we are a credible organization. So we have received several Achievement of Excellence for 9 years in a row for this agency. We spent about $145 million in procurements. Again, that's directly towards job creation. We advertise that specifically, but that, again, it talks to some of our accomplishments. We've created a lot of jobs. We've spent a lot of jobs in this community, or spent a lot of money in this community, and spent contributing and being a great community partner. We've offered technical and administrative courses to small businesses in our effort to increase the minority participation, again, and consistent with our policies that we value very much the local participation and the participation of minority and small firms. And our commitment to that is by having these technical and administrative courses to small businesses. We have had 100-plus activation, SunPass activation and events, and distributed about 10,000 sticker tags. I think, again, that's part of our effort to get out to the customers, having 100-plus events out there in the community where we're reaching out. Again, it's our commitment to the public. We're not an island. We're not isolated. We truly work to try to get out there, and particularly to get people to get a SunPass and sticker tags. We obviously, you've heard a lot about. We launched the first and the only one that I'm aware of, cashback toll dividend initiative, and I think that speaks for itself. The fact that we've been innovative, and again, staff and board members are equally responsible for that. I think the toll dividend cashback program has been very successful, and again, it's our commitment to giving back to the community and to recognize the people that are affected by our toll decisions. They get some relief. And lastly, I want to talk about the fact that we've executed interlocal agreements by participating. We're now members of the CCSS, and that's a centralized back office that is now in conjunction with the state of Florida. And there again is for us to be able to be part of a greater system, so you can travel from Miami to eventually Alaska, if you can do that, and have one tolling system and one way to collect your fees and pay for your tolling fees. So again, that's a little bit about what we've accomplished and what the purpose of the budget is for. Next year, we hope to be able to come back to you with some of these accomplishments set out by these board decisions and the budgets that we laid out for ourselves. So, Marie, at what point in time you want to jump in and kind of take over, obviously, of our professional financial person, not a volunteer.
That was a great intro, though.
I think it's time to shut up and turn it over to the professionals.
Okay.
Cliff?
But you did that so well.
Okay.
Proceed. I was just curious on the accomplishments. I think it's great whenever your bond rating goes up, but I'm just kind of curious as how does MDX compare to other toll authorities? Is this exceptional? Is this average?
Really good. No. Let me let Maria specifically address that. How that?
We're right in line with the other toll authorities. I think we accomplished a significant achievement of closing the system, and the rating agencies were anticipating us doing that and how successful it was. So I think our rating was a little delayed to be upgraded, but we're right in line with all the toll authorities. And I don't think you're ever going to see a toll agency that has revenue bonds that are not backed by the state or tax dollars be in a AA category. So a single A category is where most of the toll authorities are. So we're doing really well.
So you, again, just to reiterate, we're consistent with our rating with all other toll agencies, is what you said.
We're consistent, and I think, we went through a major initiative,
right.
And I think that it happened very quickly as far as our rate adjustment, and I think that we were able to demonstrate the results, so we didn't have to wait another year to be upgraded.
And we also made some bold decisions, that is to close our system, which kind of created a little bit of doubt. And I think now they recognize that our decision to close the system has been a fruitful one, and they now recognize it. I think it's reflective in our bond rating. So, okay. Cliff, any other question? Any other board members? Welcome. Madam Chair, former Chair. Any other questions or comments before we turn it over to Marie and staff?
I wasn't quite sure if he was just calling me Madam Chair or talking to you.
Was looking at me.
So what we're going to discuss today is obviously the budget. We did submit the budget to all board members April 18th time period, so we did get some feedback from a couple of board members. We did post the budget to our website as required by state statute. It's 2 days prior to a workshop. We actually submitted it to posted it to our website several weeks in advance for the public to review and comment on. From a budget summary standpoint, The operating budget is $59.8 million. Next slide, please. $59.8 million. Of that $59.8 million, 70% is fixed or committed. And that means that 70% of the 59 is already under contract. They're fixed amount. So the variable portion of the operating expenses is roughly around $17 million. When you look at the budget to budget, from last year's budget, which was 59.95, compared to the budget we're presenting you today is 59.8, it went down $150,000. So from fiscal year 16's budget that you approved to this budget we're submitting, it went down $150,000. Now, when we look at it from the fiscal year 16 actual results, what we actually spent, which is $58.7 million. So we left some money on the table compared to our budget. So our budget last year was 59.9. We're spending 58.7. When you look at it from actual spending to the proposed budget, it went up $1.1 million. And primarily that really is due to that we do have a larger contingency this year than we did prior year. So with that said, the budget went up less than 2%, which is pretty good. Our debt service payment that is in this budget is $96 million. We provided for non-work program capital, which we'll talk about a little later, but that is headquarters, excess parcel leasing, ITS infrastructure, but we'll get into that discussion, $1.9 million. And then we have our other funding requirements, which is our pay-as-you-go, our cash funding of the work program, which is $65 million. Yes?
May I just ask a quick question? With respect to the contingency that was provided in the budget for 16, $650,000, it was not spent. Were those dollars in the contingency rolled over?
The budget never rolls over. It's an authorization of spending. The money goes into the general fund,
Sure.
And then it gets reallocated the upcoming year. So it's never rolling over and adding to a budget, so to speak.
Understood.
But a portion of the $650, it did get spent to the various categories. The majority of the last year's budget went to legal expenses, the contingency.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide, please. Or do you want me to handle it? The budget components are the revenue, which is $240 million, the operating component, which is 59.8, which includes operations, maintenance, roadway operations, administration, contingency. Steve Andriuk is going to talk about the toll operations, and Juan Toledo is going to speak about maintenance and roadway operations. In other administration, we're going to talk about the highlight categories. Mario will speak to the public communications section of the administration budget. Non-project capital, already mentioned, is 1.9, debt service 96.4 million, and then the other funding is 45 million. On the revenue side, our toll revenue is 228 for next year. And the increase is primarily due to additional traffic growth, an additional collection component. We realigned the model to show that there is less diversion of traffic. I do want to point out there is no CPI adjustment. There are no rate increases. These are the current rates that we have approved. So there's no adjustments in rates. I'm going to speak a little bit about toll revenue in the next slide. Our fee revenue is generated primarily from toll-by-plate customers. If a customer doesn't pay in 30 days, they get a $5 late notice. When they get into the 90 days, additional $5. So our fee revenue is from our toll-by-plate customers. Our investment income is from our bond proceeds that we have on hand, our general reserves that we have on hand, and we're going to have less money on hand even though interest rates are expected to go up towards the end of our fiscal year. Our lease revenue is generated from the excess parcels that we lease out. We primarily have about 14 to 15 current leases, a little bit of an increase from last year. Some of the leases that have been renewed have a CPI adjustment built in. On the toll revenue side, we're going to have an increase in transactions. We anticipated at 492 compared to 469. Now, the budget was realigned. It's a forecast that we received from CDM Smith, our traffic consultants. As I indicated, they look at the current trends and they realign the base model for additional traffic growth, for adjustments on diversion of traffic, as well as the collection rate on toll-by-plate. Our revenue is 80% from SunPass, 20% from toll-by-plate. Our SunPass revenue, we recognize it immediately. When a car goes through a gantry, we recognize the revenue. When a car goes through a gantry and it does not have a transponder, it is video billed, and it has to go through a process through Steve's shop. It goes through an image review, and then it goes through a billing cycle. And we do not recognize toll by plate until it's actually billed to the customer, so there's a lag there. Our toll by plate customer, we carry a receivable of $28 million on average. And this is an important point because when you look at the budget, I don't want anybody to think, oh, this is all cash basis. We don't have all that cash. There is a period of time that we have to go through a collection process to collect our money. So we do anticipate the business model that we have today of billing a customer, that you're going to have about 15 to 20% of your revenue base, you're going to have a receivable on the books. And as I indicated on the slide, 90% of our toll by plate is in the collection phase. So they're 90 days or older. So it takes us a while to collect our revenue as it relates to toll by plate.
So, Marie, let me stop you there. We in our budget briefing, we went over this area, and I think it's important to emphasize this for board members. We have about $25 million that's always in the arrears collectible. We won't have. So when somebody says, "Oh, you made X, $240 million," well, understand that $25 million of that will always be in the collection to be collected at some point in time in the future. So really, it's something that's important when you're looking at 10% of your revenues at any point in time that will be in the arrears that you won't have access to pay as you go first subject.
Correct. Now, the $28 million is only toll revenue.
Yeah.
So on the fee revenue, we don't recognize the fee revenue until we collect it. But I did want to make a point that the toll revenue is not on a cash basis. So high level on the expenditure side, toll operations is $34.2 million. That's an increase of $73,000 from last year's budget. Roadway operations is $5 million, an increase of $192,000. Maintenance, $7.3 million. Pretty much flat from where it was last year. Administration, $12.2. It went down $765,000. And then contingency, we have an increase of overall in the contingency about $350,000. So the budget we're presenting to you today, again, is $59.8 million, and that's a decrease of almost $150,000 from last year's budget. Next slide. With the component, yes.
Yes, question on the staff. We had increased
Mr. Myers, you're recognized. I'm sorry.
Thank you. With respect to the staff increase of $275,000, the office staff, can you? The office administration.
Office administration line item went down $765,000.
Well,
the contingency for 250. Are you talking about the ITS?
No, I'll find it right here. It's office administration increase of $275,720.
Marie, it's the breakdown of administration that's further on in the presentation.
Okay, we'll get to
Okay,
that if
perfect.
we could. Go back to the slide. So the total expenditures between operation, debt, and non-project capital is $158 million authorized spending is what you're going to authorize in Budget and Finance Committee meeting at 11 o'clock. Of the $59.8 million, 70% of that is already committed under contract. So they're either lump sum, the rates are set. So the portion that is variable are things that are, task authorization driven, utilities, some of the professional services. That's about $17 million. And then again, the debt service is $96.4 million, and that is all attributed to our revenue bonds. We do not have any state loans outstanding in the fiscal year 17's budget. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to toll operations for Steve to go over his budget.
Thank you, Marie. Mr. Chairman, board members, now we get into the details specifically for toll operations. Our budget is comprised of both set fee and volume-based price contracts. To note is that increases in toll transactions directly affect billing services, postage, image review, bank and credit card fees, as well as SunPass processing charges. The increase in the toll by plate, which is the first line item that you see, is attributed to an estimate of over 151 million video transactions for FY17. This represents an increase of over 14 million from last year. This process is volume priced in a sense that it's a fee priced at 55 cents per mailing and $3.21 per phone call that the back office receives. Our call center averages about 5,700 calls a day, and the mail house production is averaging over 15,000 mailings a day. So that kind of puts the number in perspective of why we see the increase. But I think what needs to be realized is, as Marie stated in her details on the revenue source, the fees from the revenue, or the revenue from fees, is forecasted to be $9.1 million. Well, that's roughly what we're asking for our back office operation. The largest decrease in this year's budget is the image review software and staffing. If you may recall, MDX bifurcated the original contract that we had with our image review system and removed the manual image review component and awarded this to Pride. This significantly reduced our per image review cost, which is where you see the decrease in expectations for next year.
Right.
So overall, the direct cost budget represents a decrease of over $140,000 for next year. Taking into account the indirect cost for SunPass transaction processing and the transponder subsidy, which is estimated to increase by over $216,000, this is really due to the increase in the traffic and SunPass penetration that we're expecting in FY17. So all in all, the total operation budget for FY17 is $16,896,410, which represents an overall increase for this year's budget of $73,226.
Ms. Gutierrez?
Chair. Thank you, Steve. I have a couple of questions. When does the new back office go live?
It'll be most likely July 1, so the next fiscal year of 2017.
Okay. And what, if anything, changes in this budget to that budget?
The first line item will be reduced almost completely. Composed in this is the Customer Service Support Center, which includes our Cashback Dividend Award customer service and the customer care group that's located at 924. That budget is roughly around $500,000. That will be reduced as well, but that whole almost entire amount will go away. But then we'll take on the CCSS cost, which we're looking to be less than this total price right here.
Okay, that's the one.
Yeah, continue.
Okay, what enhancements, if any, are being considered for state-of-the-art audio assistance? When you call, there are huge advances in a phone system that is automated that can assist, and percentages can be reduced on waiting time and things that they need to get done before an individual comes to play.
And I'm sorry if I hadn't reported this. I thought I did earlier, about probably 4, 5, 6 months ago, through the board requesting to have this process put in place. We brought a supplemental agreement to the board, which brought the price from, I think it was $2.50 a phone call to $3.21. We incorporated all those factors. We have a very high percentage of calls that are taken without going to a CSR, and actually people pay using a interactive voice response system. So they don't have to worry, but they can call in the middle of the night, be able to do it over the phone and make their payments. The other part was when we exceed the limit of the 5-minute wait time, a message comes on to allow them to push a button to leave a message so we can call them back. So all of those components have been initiated. We don't expect to increase or do anything since we're moving to the customer, the CCSS in a year. No sense spending an additional funds.
Yeah.
One last question.
Yes, ma'am.
What's going to happen to all these employees that are currently working in our back office? Are they going to be affected anyway, anyhow, with the new improvements, with the new transition?
The expectation for the customer care group is to provide their names and allow them to interview for the hub that is going to be located here in Miami for the CCSS. So that's just the 12 individuals that we employ here at MDX or in Miami. Those that are at our off-site location for the back office, my take, there will not be. We will shut it down, and that'll be the end of it. So those employees would transition to new work that our contractor is getting from other facilities or other agencies.
I don't even know if to refrain from my comments or say it and just, let it drop.
My suggestion is it'd be atypical for you to refrain. Please, seriously, tell us. I think we're here to discuss what you think is important.
Well, I'm going to speak for the little people.
Okay.
When we got rid of the gantries, when we got rid of the toll booths, those employees that were longtime employees had to apply, had to go through this endurance to see who would qualify that would go into this new back office to then work. Now, one more time, these same people, some didn't even make it through. Some, had to leave because the experience was very difficult. Now, again, these same employees that went through all that have to go again. Something has to change. We go to improve, those employees get hurt. Why? Time and time again do those employees have to get hurt. Why isn't it easy? We transition, they've been here. If their scorecard has been nice, they continue to work with us and they continue to do the new system and work with the new system. Why do they have to start all over again? Hey, you're a new employee, now you have to apply again, and if you're good, we keep you, and if not, hey, goodbye, you're just a number. Why aren't we treating them more fair? That's what I'm having a hiccup over, because that's what I see going on.
Yes.
Unless there's a better plan, This is what it sounds like to me.
I cannot agree more with what you're stating. I think part of the process that we're dealing with, risk. MDX, because it's not our contract, and we're just in agreement with the CCSS. Xerox is the company that has to perform. If we say you must, and they don't perform to the level of Xerox's expectations as well as ours, then we're the ones at risk. Outside of that, what I explained when I went to the CCS meeting with Xerox was that I have the cream of the crop. These are the people that you want to hire, and I'll stake my reputation on it. But I cannot force them to do that. What we said was, here are the individuals. We're going to keep a few because we'll still need the customer service for the cashback dividend awards, and we'll still have the code red type of customer service that we need to provide, which is high level to elected officials, et cetera, that we have to deal with. But ultimately, the expectation is each one of those individuals will transition.
Okay. Any follow-up questions?
We need to protect our employees.
So I think your point is loud and clear. I think
If I can clarify,
Steve and Executive Director Rodriguez heard that.
we heard it clearly, and just for the record, their contract. they're not MDX employees. They're contractual employees. With that said, that's why we can encourage, like we did last time, but they're not MDX employees. We believe they are the best of the best, and we are confident, and I am confident, that the majority of them are going to be manning the CCSS office here in Miami. I'm pretty confident of that. But they're not MDX employees. They're not part of the 44 employees that we have at MDX.
Oh, no. Pretty much, I know they're not our employees, but, it's semantics. They're not our employees, but they are the face of MDX. On the phone when people call and complain and they have a problem. But they're not our employees. I know that.
Ms.
I fully
Gutierrez,
understand.
I think that both Executive Director and Steve have heard that, and they understand that you're serious about it, and I think that we'll take extra action to ensure that they're within our legal limits. They're encouraged. Xerox is encouraged to hire them. So before I take a couple more questions, I want to recognize the presence of Mr. Vincent Brown. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Myers, and then, Madam Weinberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Former Chair Gutierrez, I share your sentiments exactly, and it's unfortunate. As you know, Steve, I've had to call the center a few times last year without identifying myself, and we really do have some really good people on the phones taking care of our people. I'm glad our executive director clarified that these are not MDX office employees. I sure don't want the public feeling that. But I share your concern that people are being displaced. It is unfortunately the casualties of technology. And I tell my now millennials children entering the workforce that is the way of the world. And if you're not into something tapped into technology in your job, you might not have a job in 10, 20, 30 years for sure. So as we improve, and we will continue to improve the toll operations all over the world, really, there will be casualties of technology. And I think we're being very responsible in encouraging our contractors to do the right thing, but that's really all we can do. So I'm sure, Steve, you've had some uncomfortable meetings and you've handled it very well. So I appreciate all your work on that. Thank you.
And Steve, you have now further ammunition to back that up, saying a lot of your board members are strongly encouraging you to do that. Mr. Myers?
Yes. With the back office, the 55 cents a mailer and $3.21 a phone call will be no longer a part of, right?
That's correct.
Of our payment. So it'll be in the Xerox responsibility, and that payment would essentially be lowered.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay. Just for curiosity's sake, 90% of the toll operation or toll by plate is still unpaid, correct? Or is paid after the 30 days, right?
Yes.
After, okay. But the mailers go out within the first 30 days or after?
It's on a 30-day cycle if you're continuing to be a toll-by-play customer. If you are a new customer, it's after 7 days.
Do you know of any likelihood for the new back office to incorporate electronic mailers as a part of their system to capture those toll debts?
Yes, and actually...
I'm just... No, I'm not. I'm just asking questions.
We do that today. We pay less.
He has to be a Manelli. Yeah.
If you sign up for getting an emailed invoice or a text invoice, it only costs us 5 cents. That was what we renegotiated to bring our cost down. We run about probably 2% of the total only gets emailed, but they're large accounts. These are like fleet accounts and so forth that comprise a large volume of dollars. In the future for the CCSS, yes, that it's still the same. We're pushing the electronic side as much as possible, and those were part of the requirements of the new system.
And one final question. Of that number of folks that pay that are past 30 days, how many of those pay online versus over the phone currently? Do we know that number?
No,
okay.
Sir, I do not. No.
Thank you.
Harris?
What systems are you doing? And you know I'm very familiar with this toll-by-plate billing. Okay? So be very careful on your answer. What systems are we doing to improve, the collection? And the second question to that is, how are we and where are we in comparison to the other authorities?
You have 30 seconds to answer the questions. A lot of material to cover, ladies and gentlemen.
To your first answer, as far as what we've done to enhance the ability for payments, the first and foremost, I think, is to understand and be compassionate with the customer who calls when they're in dire straits. And the board authorized us to do the one-time courtesy. That in itself is bringing in the dollars, where people realize that they've made mistakes in their life or whatever, their financial situation, and providing them the ability to pay a little bit less than what their total is. That has helped tremendously to bring in the dollars. As far as what we're moving, or to continue with the collection side, it's really the registration hold. That has just, moved throughout the entire industry of the United States, where we've seen numbers that nobody else has seen as far as collections. So we're sitting at the top of what everybody else is looking at on how well are you collecting your dollars, even after 9 months. That's how we're tracking it. And everyone is looking and saying, well, how are you getting these people to pay? And I said, they're coming out of the woodwork because they've got a registration hold. What we used to do before was suspend your driver's license. Well, it's really not known if you've got to suspend a driver's license unless you get pulled over and break the law. So if you drive safe for 10 years, you're never going to get any problems. But on the back of your car is this little sticker that says you're no longer valid. That really scares the people, and evidently that's what works.
Okay. All right. Moving right along. Did Ms. Gutierrez? You're good? Okay. Cliff?
Exactly how are the projections made? Is it just historical growth patterns, or do you factor other things in, like the economic health of the community? And the reason I'm asking that is about a week or 2 weeks ago, Mario, in his clippings, there was an article about how as the economy improves, more people use their car more often. And now I'm starting to read articles that maybe the economy is starting to falter. Does that impact your projections, things like that?
Yes, sir, it would. And actually, we take all those into consideration from our traffic and revenue consultants, providing us the economic outlook for the future. We do historical numbers to look at where we're at today and what we expect tomorrow to be. It's a forecast. We're looking at a crystal ball. But the good part, if the traffic is down, so will our fees go down, because we won't have as many that we're getting a phone call from or mailing out to.
Historically, though, over the life of this agency, have the projections been accurate?
Within, I'd say, reasonable deviations, yes.
Yeah. And in some cases, I think this year they calculated more people were going to go off of toll by plate, and so they've been off a little bit, but in this case, to our benefit.
Well, I understand, when we had a hurricane or after September 11th, sure, things are going to go down. But, in general, the project...
Pretty consistent. And like I said, with the closing of our system, they projected that we were going to get a lot of people to go off toll by plate. And a lot of people are not going off toll by plate. They're paying the extra $1, which amazes all of us, but it's additional revenue. So any more questions before we move on back to Marie? Or, I'm sorry, Steve, you're continuing?
Thanks, sir. One.
Go ahead. Good morning. For the roadway operations budget, for the most part, it remained flatline from one year to the next. Actually, it's a little bit lower. As Marie has said it earlier, a lot of what goes into the operational expenses is our fixed costs, contract fixed costs already, such as the traffic management center, service patrols, the MPDS compliance. So those are pretty much stuff that we've already agreed to. The big variances is in the service patrol. Even though we've maintained a $2.3 million budget over the last couple of years, this year we're forecasting for the construction jobs that are going to be now really picking up in fiscal year 17. So what we want to do is have the ability to expand the services for those when construction is really heavy and ongoing through the entire system between 17th and 97th Avenue, so that we can handle incidents a lot more efficiently. And that's the big difference there. But that's offset with the MPDS requirements for fiscal year 17. And then on the...
If I may interrupt you on, basically what you just said is that because we are anticipating a lot more congestion or traffic issues, we're going to allocate more resources, particularly road assistance and more of these vehicles to help people, correct?
That is correct.
And we're not spending the $2.5 million. We're allocating an extra $215,000 just as a contingency.
Exactly. What we're doing is that we're trying to forecast for the peak hour congestion so that we can handle any incidents that are required to maintain traffic flow during those times,
okay.
AM and PM peaks.
Okay, thank you.
The big increases in the DOT indirect pass-through, I think that's going to be largely due to the additional assets that we're going to be bringing on as a result of the 836, 826 interchange. We are taking on all the additional bridges that were constructed. So once the project is completed and turned over, which we do expect to be in July, between the July-August timeframe, all those assets come to us. We have to insure it, and you'll see also that difference in the maintenance budget as we move ahead on that. So on the maintenance side, overall, it's a very small difference. However, if you notice on the maintenance support services, that increase is about $150,000. That's largely due, again, to the assets that we're bringing on as part of the Palmetto 836 interchange. Those assets now have to be updated on our database. We have to go through, coordinate with DOT on how we're going to be logging that is through the bridge reporting. And that's also taking into consideration some additional bridge inspection oversight that we got to do in the fiscal year 17. So in overall, it's a balanced budget, but we're trading off maintenance services, which we are. The reduction of the 150 is due to the construction that we have going on. Now what we're doing with the asset maintenance contract is that we're reducing services in the areas where the contractor is now responsible to maintain and oversee those areas. So we're trying to offset those costs with the additional maintenance support service that we're going to be taking on in FY17.
Questions? One, I have a question. This maintenance support services, you have a contingency there or a variance of $150,000. What's that expected to be spent on?
Again, that's the database that we have to now update as it relates to the additional assets, the bridges, everything associated with the 836, 826 interchange. We have to now log that into our asset maintenance database so that we can track the lifeline of that, and when we have to do maintenance and when we have to do replacements in the future. All that goes into it, and that's all part of the maintenance support.
Okay.
We're taking on roughly 25, 30 more bridges.
We currently have 126 bridges on the system. I think when all is said and done, we're going to be close to 150 bridges, including those big segmental flyovers. But that also includes all the other assets, sliding, guardrail, drainage, everything that we log into our asset maintenance database. All that has to get inputted in there. We do it with GIS so that we know exactly where it is, when we have to maintain it, and working with the asset maintenance contractors to make sure that we are doing our routine maintenance as is required.
Okay. Thank you. Cliff, you had a question?
Yeah, I just need a little clarification. The interchange at the Palmetto and the Dolphin, the 826, 836, that was jointly funded between the state and MDX, and now MDX is going to be responsible for all the maintenance? Is that what I heard?
MDX has always been responsible for that interchange in terms of maintenance. Before the construction began, we always had that entire envelope, except for the items that are relevant to mainline State Road 826. So in essence, all we're really doing is taking back what we always maintained as part of our agreements with DOT and as part of what the transfer agreement gave to us when we took over the system. So we're just really taking now the additional assets that are part of it. We're recording, we're logging it as our assets, and those go into our books as assets that we own.
Back to the enabling legislation when the MDX was created.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? All right. Let's turn it over to Jason. I believe you talked about administration budget.
Yes, thank you. The administration budget is made up of 4 categories: the salary, tax, and benefits of $6.4 million, the variance of $226,000 over the approved 2016 budget. Professional services of approximately $4.4 million has a decrease of $1.2 million. Budget over budget, the office administration of $1.4 million is a variance of $240,000, and the treasurer and bond admin at approximately $100,000 is an increase of about $400,000. The total budget for the administration category of $12.2 million, showing an overall decrease of $765,000.
And to answer Mr. Meyer's question earlier about salary, tax, and benefits that went up $226,000, the increase is primarily due to about $150,000 is due to all the employees' rate adjustment, including contract employees, as well as an increase in benefits. And there's $60,000 of increase for paid time off, such as sick time and vacation. There is about additional $4,000 for education and additional $3,000 for a wellness program increase. So those are the components of the 226 increase.
Correction. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Correction, my question was on the office administration, and maybe I'm confused here, so my apologies, but on the sheet, this spreadsheet, I see 241. On the document, the annual budget document, mind you, it was the preliminary document that was sent out via email, has it at 275. Let's see. So just curious.
That the 275 you're speaking of is the projection to the budget. The 241 is a budget to budget.
Gotcha.
And the office administration, the detail on that, the 240 is made up, the increase is primarily made up of two items. About $80,000 is related to the headquarter administration line item, which is specifically for the replacement of a roof on Building B. And then about $170,000 is related to additional headquarters-related information technology, which is primarily made up of multi-year licenses for software related to the headquarters. We pay the license fee once, and it's good for 3 or 4 years, then we got to pay it again, so it's kind of on a cycle. So our Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, the Adobe software, you're familiar with those are multi-year. We pay them once, and you don't see them again for 2 or 3 years. And that's the primary reason for that. Also, the new security access system, which I'll be talking about in the non-project capital. On the operating side, there's some software and operating costs related to the new headquarters security access system.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Mr. Walters?
What's the definition of professional services?
It's all the consulting services,
Consultants.
all our consultants.
Design and
Administrative
whatnot?
related.
Yeah, no, just consultants for the operating side, GC, for non-board program, our financial advisor, our legal team,
Okay.
HR services, security services.
It's not design?
No.
Okay.
And speaking to that, the professional services breakdown, and we will have slides coming up that will get into the detail for the general engineering consultant and information technology support services and for public communications. But some of the other line items that are in the professional services include our annual audit and accounting support services of $125,000, our financial and investment advisor of $225,000, legal support of $265,000. The litigation support, as you can see, is $250,000, which has a major decrease as hopefully some of the litigations wrap up. Our state and local advocacy at $130,000, minor HR and security-related costs of $2,500, and our traffic and revenue at $140,000. But now we'll move on to the more detail related to our public communications, and Mario will be speaking to that.
Good morning, board members. Overall, the budget for fiscal year 17, we're seeing a reduction in the budget, mainly due to the ramp down of the public education campaign that we have there. You can get the next slide and we can kind of break down a little bit. Last year we had launched 2 significant programs with the intent of really changing the conversation from ORT into the impact that MDX has in this community. Overall, the public education campaign had 3 phases, and I've kind of listed them here. We've highlighted the impacts the work program has to the community. We highlighted the various safety initiatives that we have in place, such as road rangers and the high safety ratings of our system throughout the county. And we've also started to begin talking about the convenience of using the MDX system, how the MDX system provides the connections to life's most important moments, such as taking your child to a recital or a game, or just having a family night out or a date night, those type of scenarios. The other significant program that was launched was really the cashback toll dividend program. It rewarded the most frequent users for the use of the MDX system, and it really strengthened our awareness. People started to begin to realize that the majority of the tolls that they were spending were on the turnpike and not necessarily on the MDX system, which was great to strengthen that awareness. Overall, both programs provided positive results and did begin to change the conversation that we've had with regards to the closing of the system. Next slide. Looking forward, we want to continue to tell our story and strategically place MDX and what our role is in advancing mobility solutions. We want to show MDX as collaborating with other agencies and municipalities while addressing the transportation challenges that we have within our community, and continue to highlight the work program and the impacts that we have, as well as continue to build on the participation of the cashback toll dividend program. Overall, we'll be working to be our own content distributors, which I think is very key, and enhancing the channels that we use to be able to better control the conversation when it comes to transportation within our county and MDX. We will be using various tools at our disposal to enhance our grassroots efforts within the community, especially targeting our customers. And we'll continue to collaborate with other communication, from a communication standpoint, with other agencies and municipalities to show a united effort and us working together to manage the congestion and controlling the transportation conversation overall. Those are the points, if there's any questions.
Board members have any questions?
Sure.
Ms. Fano?
Thank you very much, Mario. Can you explain to me, you have here recent surveys show favorable opinion of MDX. What surveys are those, please?
Sure. During the open enrollment for the cashback toll dividend program, there was a survey that was required as people were signing up or updating their account. There was at least 2 of the 5 questions that were required, and in there it would show overall value that MDX provides to the customer was very satisfactory. We also asked them with regards to landscaping, the road condition, customer service, and everything was above between 85 to 95% satisfaction rates.
But that's the only survey?
It's correct. It's the survey that we have, and approximately 23,000 people answered. And those are mainly our customers.
Are there any plans to do additional surveys to get a pulse on how the customers are feeling?
Yes, and depending on the initiatives that the board would like us to continue to move forward for the next fiscal year, in the budget I've allocated for market research to be able to continue not only using the cashback toll dividend program, but to also go in and to take a market research and do some focus groups with regards to messaging and some of the improvements that we can do for not advertising, but enhancing the impression of the cashback toll dividend program, as well as any educational campaign that the board would like us to do.
The other question I have, if I may, the website.
Mm-hmm.
Who takes care of updating the website? Because several times, and I've had to reach out to the executive director, I found things that are stale.
We have been under a redesign over the past year due to the resources that we have dedicated to the website. When the cashback initiative program came up, and as well as some other initiatives that were based on the website, some of that redesign has fallen in the priority list to make sure that we were ready for the open enrollments and everything that it's come with that. We are almost complete with getting it up to date and being able to have a system where it will make it much easier for a dynamic website that can be regularly updated, much easier than what it is right now.
For a year, because of all the implementation of all these wonderful things that we're doing, the website was not kept up to, and that's mainly where people go these days, right? I mean, go to the www.mdxway.com, and they get there and they don't get current information. So I have a concern with that being a priority, because that's, I guess, the landing page especially, that's where people go, at least today.
Correct.
Yep. Any more questions? Mr. Myers?
Yes, to add to that, I share similar concerns and had similar issues that Board Member Fano's had as well, and I've communicated some of those to you. I don't know if the question was answered, though. Who handles the website right now? Is it an outside company that's providing that service, not only changing the face, but also updating the content, or is that done internally?
It's a mixture of both. The server and the website is hosted by the state, which is sometimes when they have some kind of hardware issue, our website might go down for maintenance or whatnot. Then we have part of our consultant. They do a lot of the coding to be able to maintain and regularly update that website. So internally, we would provide the documentation or any of the resources needed to be updated to the IT department, and then depending what that request would be, either IT would update it directly or the consultant would have to update it.
And the consultant is?
At this time, I believe the sub-consultant is Ballast, I think their name is, James Akers. He also works with this state on their system as well.
I'm not calling James out. I don't know the gentleman, so it's either his issue or ours, but it should never take a year to update a website. Regardless of all the good things we have going on, it should never take a year. To that point, I would like to see the MDX website content line item budget be increased, primarily to develop a mobile, not application, not an app, but a mobile version of our website. Because if you use the iPhone or your Android and you go on MDX Way, you're trying to zoom in and click different things and something doesn't click with the next pull-down menu. So I just wanted to make that comment as well.
We are, with regards to the website, the development, we have been doing it, although it hasn't been the top priority due to the other initiatives. But part of that redevelopment that we have done that we're very close to implementing is a mobile-friendly version of the website, which really condenses everything into an easy form so that all you have to do for the most part is just scroll up or down depending on what you're reading and how far down the website you would have to go.
And I asked that question 6 months ago, and it's still something that's out there. And to me, that, yes, took the words right out of my mouth.
So board members, this is where you have an opportunity to, again, make policy decisions, encourage, direct, and if there's a direction that you want staff to go, we need to allocate money for it or take money or move money around. So I'm willing to entertain any ideas, suggestions to tell staff and recommend to staff what we want to do. So with that said, before I go, Mr. Myers, that's direct at you. If you have something specifically, you think we want to do with this, let it be known now.
Yeah, I'd like to, if that's already ongoing, what I would like to see is an update on when this is going to go live, so that we can hold ourselves accountable for that rather than asking questions and hearing similar update content, months later.
If I may, to the board, because we went through a process, not our fault. Our vendor closed shop December 3rd. Two of the outstanding items that had already been agreed with, had already been contracted with, were the website and a mobile app, which was the rate calculator that this board asked for. Those two items, when we terminated the contract and settled, are still pending. I've seen the website. I've been able to scroll down. But until it isn't 100% ready, I'm not releasing the money, and I'm not going to share it with the board. I've seen it is mobile friendly. It is a updated website. I hear you loud and clear, and staff hears you loud and clear. The responsibility for updating that website, the content, not the coding, the content, which is what is important to this board, is our responsibility as staff. Okay? So we hear you loud and clear. It is going to be a priority. It has been a priority of mine. We will make sure that this comment doesn't come up next month, the month after, or a year from now.
And one last comment with respect to this, the survey. That was a great question, Board Member Fano. I'd like to see the results. I appreciate you verbally sharing it with us, but I'd really like to see what those results look like.
Sure. It was included in last month's board report, but I will forward that this afternoon for you.
With the breakdown. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Gutierrez, Mr. Martinez, and Mr. Brown. That's right.
I was waiting.
Oh, okay. And you want to go first? Is that what you were waiting?
Sure, thank you.
So,
the Treasurer, I'll go last.
Okay.
So,
all right. Ms. Weinberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I know you saw me, but then you forgot me. I want to be careful here. We are volunteers. I mean, we get to come to this building maybe once, twice, three, some of us 6 times a month, depending on how many committees you sit on. But we're still volunteers, and we don't have the hard work and dedication that our staff has to come here every single day and take care of things. There's a lot of questions that are readily available to us as information if we just pick up the phone and call our staff. I come from public agency service, public government service, where we talk to staff directly. So I'm not a fan of calling out staff, whether it's our executive director or Steve or Juan or anybody, on what I believe are seriously administrative issues. We knew we had some issues with our website all of last year. If you're not in the know in technology, then you don't know that it's not as easy as a phone call or push a button. We're certainly trying, and the platform for mobile is in development. It's in the works. I'd rather we spend our time more focused on policy and actual dollar issues, which is the platform for this meeting today, which is our budget review. I love that you're willing to give, let's find some more money to get the things going, but they're already going and been accounted for here on the budget document. I just want us to instead try to focus on the positive rather than what minor page issue could have come on. Of course, they're valid concerns. I just don't like them being aired out this way. I don't believe that's appropriate for our staff and their work. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Gutierrez?
Okay. Two things. I think that we don't need to spend more money or add more money to the item. I think what needs to be addressed is that it can be shuffled around with what we already have. But more importantly, what I do want to voice is technology is so advanced that you don't have to create a unique website yourself. There are multitudes of companies that all they do is sell formats, ideas, layouts of websites that you buy and are mobile friendly. And they cost as little as $200. And then your programming people get to work and put your stuff in, okay? And retrofit it the way they want to so it works for you. You don't have to spend $25,000 on doing anything like that. The calculator, on the other hand, is something totally different because that's a unique special app. That's a different story. But for what we're talking about, it's very easy to get it. It's a la carte, and it's out there, and you just buy it, and it works for you, and then you change it. I just wanted to throw it out there because I don't want us to be naive on what's really out there. Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
I've one question for staff and maybe a follow-up. Once we go live with the new website, will there be a need for a person, part-time or full-time, to be dedicated to keeping the website current, the content current?
With the various initiatives, almost everything is based on the website. So yes, sir, there is a need to have someone focused on the website, and it's not just the content on the website. The cashback toll dividend, everything is tied to the website. That is the portal. Most of the work, even on the procurement side of how we advertise and how people can come onto their website to download the procurement, all of that is tied into the website. So it is a complicated system, and the resources should be dedicated.
Do you all have someone in-house, or do you need to bring someone in to do it?
That is typically done through support of our contractor.
Okay. And is that currently a part of the budget that you all have with
Yes,
the
sir,
contract?
yes.
And have you all made it known to them that this is what you all are expecting from them?
Yes, sir.
So that Mr. Meyer does not have to be concerned about a stale website?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you don't need any more money for it?
No, sir.
Okay. And I agree with Ms. Weinberg on her comments regarding calling out staff. I've spent 16 years in public service, so I get it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Martinez, and then Ms. Bono.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. First, one of the things, and it's not a budgetary issue, but I will ask Mario, one of the things I am concerned about is in this budget, do we have allocated funds for projects outside of a website? For example, getting involved in YouTube, Twitter, and other things that we need to do in public media. If we've seen nothing else in the last 9 months of what's going on in the campaigns, the old way of advertising is done. It is much more now about YouTube. It is about blogging. It is about Twitter. It is about websiting more than anything else. And is that allocated here for us to do those type of things in a more aggressive way than we've done in the past, for example?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay, and can you please give me an indication where in the itemized is that included so I can see it?
It's actually spread through a couple different categories. We have the media production, which will go into one of the key aspects is to really become a more visual storyteller through pictures and videos. So within the production, as well as within the public relations services that we have, those two line items are really intended to help that effort and to really strengthen the ties that we have to be our own content distributor.
Right. Is that so? That's part of the media campaign placement, or is that something? Is that a separate issue?
No, the placement is on the lower tier of the budget, and media campaign placement is for actual advertising dollars spent, whether it's on radio, television, or on the digital front, which is actually shown in our past campaign to have the most potential for us.
Okay. Here's my question to staff. The way we budgeted the media campaign placement and the reserve for media campaign placement last year was approximately $125,000 initially, with an additional reserve of $1.35. This year, you're suggesting a placement of $750,000 with no reserve, which is the reduction of approximately half, give or take. Why do you wish to allocate the fund in that capacity and not in a more diversified perspective where we add a slight increase to the amount of placement and then either we can place the money in either the director's contingency or in a reserve so that it doesn't imply we're going to spend it? Because my concern is this, is that when you say placement, it's almost like this is in the budget, we're going to spend it. But if it's placed in either a reserve or in a separate location to be used, it's only used if it's going to be effective. So why that scenario of why is that budgeted in that capacity? And if I can have an explanation to that, please.
The way we did it is I looked at both items from last year. The media placement and the reserve for media placement, it was desire of this board to increase it. We had a specific thing that we wanted to accomplish, and we wanted that specific line item increased, so we put it into reserve. It is my opinion, it is my recommendation to the board that we don't need that kind of money to be effective this year, given the strategies that we have developed. So we could have easily split it into two items, and that's the wish of this board, and I'll entertain it. My point to the board is that I believe we need half of the money, and whether we spend it all or not is something that we will have to bring back to you with results, return on investment or not. But if you would like to split that money up into a reserve and into a specific line item, that's your choice, similar to last year.
I feel, I don't know how the rest of the board means, but I feel a little more comfortable splitting it up in a way that we can increase the placement amount to, say, double what it was last year, which is $250,000 to $400,000, and then place the remainder in a reserve if we choose to do that. That way, it's there if we need it, but it's not all placed as a line item. But I defer to the rest of the board if that's how you guys feel. And Mr. Gutierrez, I know you work in the campaign in the media realm. Is that divided up? Does that make it more difficult, or is that just? Is that you think it works better that way? Administrative?
Yeah.
Is that okay? How does that work for you, Mr. Director?
It's pure administrative issue. If it's in a reserve and we do want to spend it, we have to release it from reserve, and I have to authorize. So it's an administrative issue. It's up to the board how you want to show it in the budget.
So I would suggest we do it in that capacity unless others have an objection to that. We increase the placement amount from last year from 125 to 250, but then we placed the remainder of the 750,000 in the reserve, which is an additional 500,000, which gives you the allocated funds that is recommended by by the staff.
Let me ask a deeper question, if I may.
Let me make a quick comment.
Yeah.
Mr. Martinez, I think I'm in agreement with that. I think where we put it also is important. So I think anywhere that requires additional scrutiny versus not being in this budget, you can move it to anywhere else, and then it requires the executive director and other people to sign off on it. So that's something I want you to consider. Ms. Weinberg.
Yeah, and that's my concern, the process behind having to go dig up the rest of the money. But I assume, if I remember my marketing days, you have some sort of plan or strategic placement plan that goes along with your budget. I never went to my CFO and asked for money unless I knew exactly what I wanted that money for. So those dollars are basically, hopefully, to be spent. We always ask for a little more because we know we're not going to get exactly what we ask for. So maybe share with us, Mario, how you and Javier sat together and arrived at that number.
Sure. We were looking at ways to continue the education campaign at a level that would provide the positive results and in the direction that the board would want to go in. After looking at some of the results from the previous or from the current fiscal year in 2016, we started looking at where the biggest potential was for return on investment, essentially ROI. And on the digital footprint, it gives us the lowest cost per impression, and it also allows us to have some of the highest impression rates come back. So being able to target that a little bit more was key for us. However, there is an importance to having a constant message on radio and within print as well. So we're looking at decreasing some of the radio and print while still having a presence on there, but increasing our digital footprint, which actually gives us the biggest potential to make up that difference if we would allocate a little bit more into that. And also we wanted to make sure that we had a presence, especially during leading up to any session, to have out of office or out of home impressions, bus shelters and billboards, because that helps reinforce the positive image that we want to do, so that the community, and as our legislature or our politicians are going into committees and into session, we're reinforcing the benefits of MDX into the community.
And having it so makes it readily available as planned. So I'm a little...
Well,
I'm not seeing the benefit of having it held somewhere. And
here's my issue. Last year, we budgeted $125,000 placement and a $1.35 million. Okay, we ended up spending all 1.4 approximately. If I'm correct? Yep. Okay. Clearly, I'm not. If you notice, I'm not recommending reducing the amount that's allocated. What I'm suggesting is the way it was allocated last year showed that there was no problem in getting the necessary approval for the reserved.
We did it at budget.
But, huh?
We did it at budget.
Right.
Like right now.
Exactly, which is what I'm suggesting, that instead of putting it all in placement, we separated in $250,000 for placement and the remaining $500,000 in the reserve, so that if there's a need to use it, it's there. I'm not saying to take it away, just simply put it separate into two locations and not all in placement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
We got Mr. Brown, and then let's bring this in for a landing, and we just make a decision, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown?
Just one question. When you place it in reserve, if you have to use it, do you need to come back to the board to use it? You can automatically use it?
No.
So there's no requirement for a budget modification or...
It's simply the department head or the owner of the process would request a release from reserves through the budget office, and I would have to authorize it.
Okay.
And that's it. It is an email. It's emails.
Okay. Got it.
Mr. Rodriguez, is the board advised of those transactions?
It would be 100% yes. They're advised of the transactions. It's all spelled out in the budget, in the board package and in the budget and finance package. I wouldn't release anything that isn't tied to a specific product that's already been presented to the board. So typically...
It's an additional level of scrutiny
Yes,
and responsibility. I think that's ultimately what we're looking for. So I think if I understood Mr. Martinez correct, you wanted to basically double the actual budget allocation from last year, and then the difference move to a reserve or a contingency. So I think if nobody has a problem with that, speak now or forever hold your truth. If not, we're going to do that. I think we understand. Okay. We have one person that disagrees.
Just have to reconvene as we did last year and
No. It would just be
You're
a
allocating.
request.
The funds are being allocated.
Staff.
It's just that he has. Is
I
that
just have bad memory.
Sure. The money, right?
The money's going to be there.
The money's going to be there. The
Yeah.
only difference is now is that to allocate it, he has to get an approval from.
If I may,
from the committee or from.
All right, guys.
if I may clarify for Mr. Brown, because the budget approval, if this is the budget that's approved, gives us $750,000 for media placement. $250,000 that the Public Communications Department doesn't have to seek any further approval, just tie it to a plan. $500,000 that would seek further approval, tied to a plan that this board would still have to know, but I would have to authorize. If we wanted to use more than $750,000, if we needed to do a budget reallocation to increase the budget, it has to come back to this board. Any further expenditure of the overall budget has to be authorized by the board.
Everybody? So I really want to move on. Mr. Rodriguez, last question on this matter. Does whether we put in this media reserve placement and your contingency, does it make any difference?
It doesn't affect it.
Okay, same process, same procedure. Okay.
So it's form over substance. Okay.
Okay. Which is one more time. Right. It's basically we have the ability to, at committee or in many other places, to say we're going to spend it. Mr. Rodriguez is authorized to spend it, and we make the decisions how we want to spend it, like we've done in the past. So, with that said, it's a.
You thought you had it tough, Steve.
That said, let's then make that recommendation to staff, and then move it to reserve. Okay.
We're all in favor.
Let's move it right along, ladies and gentlemen. So, obviously, as you can tell from the clock, it's 11:20. Our budget and finance meeting was scheduled for 11 o'clock. We're going to take the necessary time to finish this. This is a very important process to make sure that we air this out, because then this board is going to recommend to the full board that we approve this budget. So we'll take the necessary time. So let's continue moving forward. Who's up on deck?
Board members, under GEC and IT support services, we have some increases in those budgets. I'll take them one at a time. Under GEC support, we're looking at several initiatives that we want to be able to complete in fiscal year 17, but what really goes into the budget, a third of the budget that's programmed goes into work program management, updating the LRTP. We expect that we're going to go through a round here with whatever comes out of the strategic plan and making sure that we adopt that into the long-range master transportation plan. So that's the one component of it. The other components are engineering initiatives that we want to do. Basically, there's enhancing our construction administration side. We want to be able to produce our own construction procedures manual. Right now, we've been using the DOT manual, but it's a very cumbersome manual that we don't use the whole thing, and it's sometimes confusing not only for MDX but for the contractors on what we're applying off of the CPAM. So what we want to do is basically streamline that and make our own. We've been trying to do this for a few years, but because of budget constraints and because we've been looking at other initiatives, we've been pushing it off. This year, I think we have an opportunity where we might be able to complete that task and have something in place that will help not only the engineering side, but also on the contract management side in Helen's office. So that's something that we want to try to implement. The other items are really translated to more traffic safety initiatives. We want to continue to look at opportunities to enhance traffic safety along the system. We've talked about the wrong way signing. We've talked about traffic speed signs and so forth. We want to look at other opportunities. We want to continue to be able to put together implementation plans moving forward. So that's something that we're going to be looking at with this budget. And then IT initiatives. Out of the strategic master plan, I think there's opportunities where we can look to advance a lot of the strategic master plan goals. Listed are connected vehicles, the construction exchange information exchange network. These are things that we've already started that we're going to be implementing with the current year's budget, but we want to see how we can expand on that. As it relates to connected vehicles, really what we're looking at is what can we do now to implement. We don't want to use this budget for white papers and studies. I think that we've studied the heck out of this already, and we know where we can go to get this information. In working with Ivan Del Campo and seeing how we can do this, what we want to do is provide measurable results by this time next year to show you this is what we did with the budget. So implementation of dedicated short-range communication devices along the system that's going to allow for the communication between vehicles and also between our infrastructure. And we're going to be able to show results of how that is working on the system by the end of the fiscal year, and also using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technologies to enhance that for future connected vehicle and autonomous vehicle initiatives that are being discussed. We want to be able to we don't want to be behind the 8 ball anymore. We want to be ahead of it so that we can be a target for pilot programs if they're available from the feds, from FHWA and so forth on moving forward with these projects. If there's an opportunity in the future to get federal money, these initiatives that we want to implement, again, this is for implementation, this isn't for studies. This will set us up for consideration in the future to be able to move into that next step and try to be a leader in these areas. So again, the majority of these monies are set for moving MDX forward.
Ms. Gutierrez?
I'm sorry. I have a little problem in trying to follow what is it that this money is being used for. I didn't really get it. Okay, I have a problem with that. I didn't get it. I didn't get what you're saying. And my first real question is, your first bullet point says strategic plan studies. There was a budget a long time ago, maybe 4 years ago, that was set. It was $500,000 to do a strategic plan. I'm pretty sure that budget was exhausted long time ago. So what kind of money are we putting into the strategic plan study that at this point where it should be working on the financial component of it? Because
Correct.
If not, it's never going to see the light of day.
I'm sorry if I didn't explain that correctly.
Right.
When
so
I
need a little more of a breakdown to better understand what it is that it's here. Is GEC costing more, or are new services being added that's where the difference of the money is coming? Because GEC is one of our highest points. So
when I said that work program management takes up about a third of the budget that we have right now, about $250,000 of that budget approximately is for things that we do year to year, work program updates, general work program updates, long-range master transportation plan studies, miscellaneous right-of-way. This is when people call us to find out information that we go to the GEC to confirm right-of-ways. How do we coordinate these type of issues that come up? As it relates to this line item, the first line item, because it does say, it's a little misleading because it does say strategic plan studies. We are finishing the strategic plan in this fiscal year. That's going to be hopefully resolved in the next couple of meetings that we're going to be setting up to present the results of the $500,000 that you've alluded to. The allocation of what we're talking about as it relates to strategic plan is really an extra effort under the long-range transportation plan. We are now forecasting, or we're budgeting for taking whatever comes out of the strategic plan, whatever gets approved. Now we need to work that into the long-range transportation plan so that we can get it into the MPO so that we can develop it further as projects under MDX. So this is really that process of taking whatever we adopt and making it part of the countywide transportation plan. That's only about we've only allocated about $100,000 for that, to be able to get all that now and do what you mentioned, confirm the feasibility studies, because all that financial stuff has already been done. This is really just to kind of detail it out to present it to the MPO and adopt it as part of the countywide plan. The remainder of the money, is again the connected vehicle initiative, the construction information exchange network. These are all items that I'm tying to IT initiatives. These are things that we want to move forward and take the next step and be ahead of the curve instead of, either even keel or behind a little bit. And what we're looking at in this particular case is not focus on GECs just putting together reports. A lot of that money is really going to be more internal, with us putting out services to implement physical devices on the road, using our current infrastructure, adding to that, so that we can be ahead on that initiative. Setting ourselves up for the future of connected vehicle and automated vehicle initiatives that are coming along the pipeline.
Yes,
It's directed to Marie. Is there a breakdown of monies laid down on these items?
Yes, ma'am, there is.
Is that going to be shared with the board?
I believe, from a high-level perspective, he has $1.3 million as a budget for the list of items that Mr. Little indicated. He's going to spend a third of that, so almost a little bit over $400,000 for the work program development and general management. The strategic planning and LPR, I know we've allocated $100,000 to finish strategic planning and then move into the next phase, which is the LTBR. I believe there's another $100,000 for the connected vehicles, about $75,000 for the contract management system, and emergency preparation is about $25,000. We can distribute that at Budget and Finance if you like, but that is essentially what the breakout is for those items.
No, I just wanted to memorialize it by
Yes, ma'am.
hearing it out loud, because then it puts everything in perspective.
Right.
Thank you.
Any questions from any board members? Okay. Juan, I have a couple of questions myself. So, you and Marie, that was helpful. That was one of my questions, the breakdown of how you're going to spend it. A lot of IT stuff, and we refer here to technology has probably been said here about 25 times today, and it's at least 6 or 7 times on this piece of paper. So, and I have said in the past, our commitment to IT, and Juan, you said being ahead of the curve and putting our money where our mouth is. I think what I'm interested in seeing is I do want to see that breakdown, Maria, at some point in time, and kind of go over it with staff. These initiatives are as a result of your meetings with the GECs, and then the GECs forecast what their expenses are. Is that correct? Is that the process?
That is correct.
And then you fight with Marie to see what she's willing to allocate, and that's kind of how we came to this budget.
I wouldn't say we fight over it. I think I proposed my budget to Maria and to Javier.
Well, she does her job. She does her job.
They review it to make sure that it's in line with the initiatives that we want to move forward. They did revise this budget before it came to the board. It's items that, as I was saying, there's items there that we've been trying to accomplish on the engineering side for a few years. We understand I understand that there's a lot of constraints that go into putting these budgets from year to year. I think this year I think there's an opportunity to realize some of these initiatives. But with the focus is really, as we mentioned, and we'll provide the breakdowns on what we want to do with information technology moving forward from an but putting, as you said, putting our money where our mouth is. We want to show the results. We want to be able to come back to the board and show what the results of these initiatives are moving forward, not just saying, we're going to study the heck out of this, and here's a report that's already been digested by I don't know how many other people. We want to take all that information that's already readily available and let's show it out there, show results, show how we are going to be leaders in information technology moving forward.
If I may, here's what I'm going to call it a concern very specifically and publicly. Okay. It's a concern that I have, and it's a pretty significant concern. And that is, we paid in the past $60,000 for a grant that was for IT. We spent a lot of money in IT in the past and has gotten very little results. And I'm afraid and concerned that that's going to happen again. So this is really a message to the GECs, and I want to be clear. Man, you guys need to do something creative. You guys need to bring us something, because I'm kind of like with the whole mobile app, I'm tired of waiting. I can tell you for however long I'm going to be on this board is something that's very important to me. The technology, our commitment to technology, and not just, a bunch of numbers with IT on it. I really need to see something, and that's, again, my privilege as a board member and my ability to, as a volunteer, to say this is really important for this agency, not to just say, well, we're going to spend some money. I met with staff, with Marie and Javier yesterday, and we do have some monies allocated for IT, but it's really a challenge to both of our consulting firms that really are expecting not a lot of the same old. And our GEC contract, we put this year a technology component that I think you guys did a wonderful presentation, and thus and part of the award to the winning company was because of that technology presentation. I'm really expecting you guys to live up to that, and not just, we're going to allocate a significant amount of money, and a large portion of that money is for IT and IT this and IT that. I have concerns how we're going to spend that IT. So I'm going to have further meetings with Marie, with you, and with GEC to really hone in on that, because I just don't want it to, again, for however long I may be here, I really want to emphasize that. So I think I've made that clear. I'll leave it at that and open it up to anybody else. Ms. Gutierrez?
Yeah, in following what you're saying, I have a sort of concern and disconnect. We feel that this is a lot of money, but if you hear him closely, he's saying budget constraints. Like, you're asking for more, you've been wanting to do this, but you haven't been getting the budget. Because by you saying that, that's what it feels like. That's how it lands. So the question now is, do you need more? Is it that we don't have more to give you more? Okay? Are you going to be able to finish what it is you're saying here that you need? Are you going to be able to finish it, or is it half-assed? This is a big one.
That's a good question. I want to
Correct that statement?
No. I got it. And I've had discussions with Ivan on this, and we feel that we can do more with a little bit with more budget, but I also want to manage expectations and what I think we realistically are going to be able to accomplish within a fiscal year. I think between what IT has requested and between what I have under the engineering support services, I think there's an opportunity there to start and begin the implementation process. I'd rather come back and tell you, look at all this wonderful stuff we've done in 6 months, and can I have a little bit more? And I know that that's something that is going to create, administrative issues moving forward with the budget, than asking you for another $500,000 on top of this and not being able to deliver. So I want to work closely with my staff. I want to work closely with the GC, and I want to be able to produce. And I rather come back to this board saying, look, we've done all this, and here are the results within a 6-month period, and can we do more, than come back next year and say, you know what, I asked for $1 million and I only spent 4 or 5, and then it's, we didn't accomplish what we set forth. There's a lot of stuff we can do, but I want to make sure that we can make it happen. I think there is a lot of stuff that we will show as positive results with the budget that we currently have.
So he's taking on your challenge.
Well, I was setting him up. Ms. Gutierrez, any more comments? Mr. Brown?
Okay. The answer to the question is yes.
Yes.
Now we've gotten that out of the way. How much do you think you need to get your job done? I mean, because I can see us spending $750,000 on media, and you're talking about IT. Do we need $750,000 for media, or we can take some of that money and shift it to IT to get you where you really need to be? So if we're all going to be proponents of technology and the advancements towards the future, using that technology to get us where we need to be will cut down on our costs from a media perspective. So if you need more money, tell them you need more money. Tell us how much you believe you need, and then let's either vote it up or vote it down. But let's just be honest and be real about what you need, and tell them what you need, so we can either make the decision to give it to you or not give it to you.
I believe the need would be another $400,000 on top of what we're proposing. But again, I would be reluctant to ask for it now, because I want to make sure I can deliver on the $400,000 to $500,000 that we currently have.
I was in the county when...
And that's true. I want to be able to manage expectations. I don't want to tell you that I'm going to deliver $1 million worth of IT and then not do it. I need to work with my IT staff. There's a lot of stuff that we want to put out there. I want to be able to coordinate all this with the GCs, and I want to be able to implement it. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you we're going to get it all done. I want to be able to say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. I'm confident we can get it done.
Cliff, who was the water and sewer director that was in charge at the time when the county was going through this huge moratorium, and they who's that water? Tony Clemente. The Tony Clemente school was, we're going to give you this long range deadline for a goal. We know we can deliver within that time frame. We're going to give you this huge budget. We know we can come in under budget. Tony Clemente was a master at that. I don't have a problem with you telling us you need $1 million to deliver on what you have and believe to be what this needs, this agency needs. And if you come in, hey, you exceed our expectations, fine. But I'd rather you tell us what you need so we can either vote it up or vote it down and move forward, because you got to have the resources to do what you got to do. And Maria, you got to find him the money to do what he's got to do.
Mr. Brown, if I may, just for the sake of time, we do have the money, and that's what I'm interrupting you on purpose to say that we have, in our discussions with staff, we've allocated about $350,000 in contingencies for that, and that's the Christmas gift that I was setting him up for. Basically, say, if we give you that $350,000, what are you going to do with it? And that's really the concern. Is, I've been pushing for IT. We all are. It's not unique to me. But there is an additional $350,000 that, and if the contingency reserve is $250,000, and there's another $100,000 in there to be able to do exactly what he needs to do. However, as long as we're not spending it on more programs and study and identifying one of the tangible projects that they're going to deliver to us. I'll give them the money, we'll give them the money, but what are we going to get for that? And I think so. I just wanted to kind of bring that in for a landing, that there is an additional $350,000, $250,000 it's in the reserve contingency from the executive director's office, and another $100,000 in the IT department. So the question is, what are you going to do with it, and what are you going to come back to us? And I'm saying to all of you collectively, what are you going to do with that? Given we gave you what you wanted, right? You asked for $400,000, $350,000, and I'll personally guarantee the other $50,000.
And if I could just clarify, if I can just make one clarification, I'm not concerned about requesting the money. I just want to make sure that I can spend it within that year. It's a lot of work that we want to do. If we're not going to spend it all, then we're not going to use it all. So I want to just make sure that I can put a schedule in place that's going to utilize the
board money. And a lot of this board saying, IT, we're willing to put the money where we believe it is. You got that. You got the support. I think it's a matter of you and the GCs coming back to us with very specific things. We believe in you. We believe in professional staff, our consultants. We're putting the money where our mouth is, and that's really part of this exercise of going today. So you got an additional $350,000. Obviously, you got to speak to the executive director. You got to go through this board to make sure that it's allocated properly for the right reasons. So, what else do you need?
I just need to get started on my work.
All right. Any more questions?
One quick question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Myers.
The GEC line item, the approved budget from last year was $860. What of that was actually spent?
All of it. All of it will be spent.
The breakdown between A and B in terms of just a percentage-wise of expenditures?
That's a good question. The breakdown in fiscal year 16 was about 70-30, with A having the 70. And that was largely due to the strategic master plan. That was about $500,000, plus all the additional work that we put into it. So it was like about a 70-30 split, 75-25, something like that.
So the number on the
Wow.
Yes.
see how it comes out, right?
All right.
I just do we expect that percentage to change for 17, or is it is that expectations? Because this is my first year on the board.
I think this year, with everything that we're doing, and because of the initiatives we want to put in place, it'll probably be more of a 50-50 split or 60-40,
okay,
even leaning towards the other way this year.
And I would encourage that. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? Okay, moving right along. Who's next? Jason, you still on deck? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Non-project capital. The budget, we're budgeting approximately $1.9 million. an increase of approximately $400,000 from the approved budget of 2016. This is basically small capital purchases not related to work program projects. The big initiatives that are in there are related to a new upgraded Cisco phone system for the headquarters, which is 15, 20 years old. And as I alluded earlier, under the Office of Administration, this is the capital portion of for the headquarters and all throughout the toll system in 924, a new security access system, and also a large part related to 40 recertifications on leased properties that we have. Debt service and funding.
Good.
Any questions for Jason? All right. Let's talk about debt service.
So the debt service is $96.4 million, and this relates to all the outstanding revenue bonds. As you can see, 95% of the debt is fixed and 5% is variable, and that relates to the Series 2005, which $80 million is still outstanding. In fiscal year 16, we paid off all our state loans. We have no further commitment to the state as it relates to TIFIA loans or state infrastructure bank loans. I think as you continue to see, we're going to continue to pay our debt off a lot sooner. That was part of the board passing the debt management plan. So in fiscal year 17, we're obviously paying an additional almost $11 million in principal payments. Year over year, you're going to start seeing principal payments increase. Next slide. The other funding requirements relate to the pay-as-you-go. This is the portion of the work program that is not funded through bond proceeds. The money will go into the renewal and placement fund, and the request for the cash funding requirement is based upon the general area consultant's drawdown schedule of construction and projects. So the estimated work program budget for next year is $260 million. We project by July 1st we'll have about $180 million from bond proceeds 2014 available, and then $80 million would come from the pay-as-you-go cash portion of the funding. So we are requesting $65 million to be deposited next year in the R&R fund for the cash funding pay-go, and we're asking to amend 2016's pay-go from $42 million to $57. We're asking for an additional $15 million, so we're able to make the first half of fiscal year 17's payments as the construction requisitions come in. So that is your other funding requirements of this budget.
Board members, we had a lengthy discussion yesterday because I wanted to understand what exactly was this additional deposit request. And the way it was explained to me, and I understand as a business owner, it's a cash flow issue because we are shifting from one year to the other year. But I want to make sure that you all ask additional questions to your satisfaction. So that's the simple version of the request for the additional $15 million is to get us through the end of this year into the beginning of next year, which obviously it's July. So I don't know, Ms. Gutierrez, you seem like you had a question. Okay. Okay. Marie, did I interpret that correctly and explain that correctly?
That was correct, sir.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Marie or any other staff? Nope. Okay.
So this is the final slide. Would you like me to summarize, Mr. Treasurer, or would you like to?
Please go ahead.
Okay. So this is our final slide of the budget workshop. The forecasted revenue for next year is $240 million. And as we explained, it's broken out to 4 different components: toll revenue, fee revenue, lease revenue, investment income. On operating expenses, $59.8 million. It is about $150,000 above last year's budget and about 1.1 above projected actual. This budget also provides for our debt service, our revenue bond of $96.4 million, as well as the other funding we just discussed, about $65 million. So we are projecting a overall senior debt service, which is one of the benchmarks that we do measure very closely, about 1.87 is what the projected budget is proposing. Mr. Treasurer, that is the summary of the budget.
Thank you for summarizing that. Again, our requirements that we have per policy is 1.5 as a debt service coverage, senior debt service coverage. So we're well above that, and obviously that goes towards our bond rating and ensuring our bondholders that we're a financially stable company, and we projected and budgeted accordingly. So I think this has been a hearty discussion. I don't know if any of the remaining board members have any questions. If not, this is what we'll be recommending to the board. We're going to be commencing our budget and finance meeting, and we should get through that pretty quick and then get us back to our lives. So Okay, with no questions, I guess I move to convene and adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Okay. Take a 5-minute break for those of you who haven't already taken it.